Good morning, everyone. Welcome back yet again to another Connect University session, this time on Virtual Worlds and Web 4.0. I'm Alex, I'm coordinating the project, but I'm merely here to warm everyone up, to get things settled in, and just to point you out to a few logistical things. And for the content, I will leave that to our team. So, if you cannot stay until the end, the recordings will appear on the Digital EU YouTube channel, as well as on Futurium. On Futurium, you can also find the slides of today. Next to that, please do engage with us, with the speakers, via the questions. You can ask them on Slido, and we will make sure that the moderator will ask your questions to the speakers. Please follow Futurium as well, in case you want to see the upcoming Connect University sessions, in this case on the Digital Decade Policy Program report, and as well on the high-peak vision on future technologies. So without any further ado, I will let Anne to give you more context of today and also introduce the session and our speakers. Thank you. Anne? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I have, unfortunately, some problem with my PC this morning. Good morning, everyone. And a special good morning to our speakers who are with us this morning. We are really delighted to have this session of the Connect University today on the very recent, still even if it was July, initiative that we had on Web 4.0 and virtual tours. So I suspect many of you listening to us today have already had a look at this communication. So it took quite a while to organize the meeting of today for various reasons, including the summer break. But here we are, and I'm pretty sure that we are going to have a very interesting morning discussing the different issues. So what we are trying to do today is really to bring you with us through this long journey that has been the preparation for this communication and the setting of the priorities and actions that you can find in it. So for that purpose, we have invited very knowledgeable and respected speakers to help us giving you a big picture about everything that has to be covered when we prepare for this communication. And why is it? I mean, somebody says that this is not the right. Sorry, I'm told that nobody can see my presentation. Can you see it now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, good. So basically, what we are going to do is that I'm going to introduce the communication so that, you know, we have a kind of reminder of what it is about. And then we will have speakers who are going to explain a bit their view on virtual tours, on Web 4.0, and also, you know, to things very much linked to the communication itself. So we have the chance to have with us this morning Joachim Roth, who is head of unit in DigiCom. This is the unit where they take care of the Citizens Panel. So he's going to explain to us how we use the Citizens Panel for this particular initiative and in general. It will be followed by Mariette van Huiste, who was with us indeed at the Citizens Panel and will give us a presentation already the view on virtual tours by the general public and so on, something really interesting and important because we really wanted this communication not to be exclusively for tech people, but really to really support the development of virtual tours for all in Europe. Then we will have Dr. Franz Steinecker from Hamburg University, who will give us more the academic perspective. He will be followed by Sébastien Massard from Dassault Systèmes, who would give us more the industrial aspects of it. And finally, we will end with a more, hands-on application field, very important for virtual tour, which is the healthcare system. And we will have Lucia Panese with us who is also involved in one of our EU-funded projects. We will take all the questions as a batch after all the presentation. So please share your questions, and then we will gather everything and we will have a talk at the end of the session. So without any further waiting, I'm going to present you briefly the communication. So as you know, this is the EU initiative on Web 4.0 and virtual worlds. I mean, Web 4.0 and virtual worlds are definitely a game changer in many sectors. I don't think I have to convince any of you connected today that this is the case. It can be used in so many different places. I mean, 4 domains of education are highlighted on this slide: manufacturing, health, education, and training, but you could add many others. I mean, ranging from cultural heritage to fashion, design, agriculture. I mean, really any sector in the future will be probably impacted by Web 4.0 and virtual world. And that's really what triggered the need for an EU strategy so that we can go all together in the same direction and make sure that it happens the right way in Europe. So what are we talking about? So indeed, I mean, we use 2 new concepts, if I may say, in the title of the strategy: virtual worlds and Web 4.0. We do it for a purpose. I mean, we don't use the term metaverse or metaverses. It's really because we want to set here a vision which is bigger than the metaverse or the metaverses. So we are talking about virtual worlds being persistent, 3D, real-time immersive environments, blurring the line between real and virtual, for socializing, working, learning, making transactions, playing, and creating. So that's really, you know, a place where we really have the full immersion. And then we are talking about this long-term technological vision of Web 4.0, which is really, we do really insist a long-term vision. So we are pretty much aware that Web 4.0 is not even necessarily very well defined at the day of today, but we really see it as the seamlessly blending of the digital and the real world. So really a place when basically there will be no differences anymore between virtual and digital. A place where smart devices will communicate to each other to perform complex tasks, but also with the physical world. So that's really the vision that we want to set. Of course, this Web 4.0 is something that will not happen from one day to the other. This is the result of quite a long evolution of the web, from the good old Web 2.0 that we still know today, the basic centralized 2D world, to the already burgeoning Web 3.0 with decentralized platforms, the general use of digital twins, enhanced user interfaces, and 3D, to really this vision of the Web 4.0. When we prepare for this communication, beyond the fact that we realized this was going to be game changers for many sectors, we also were very, taken by some numbers and some facts that we found in various reports. Some of them are put on this slide, but really you could find many other projections, many other sources of data in many reports on the web if you do a search on any of your favorite, searching tool. There are really, every report, every study make it clear that this market is going to boom in the future. And probably very quickly. So you see, for example, here the projection from Bloomberg, and you see that in like 8 years, the market is going to kind of explode to a number of 800 billion euro. There are also studies which show that this is going to create quite many new jobs. For example, Ecoris made a report where they show that by 2025, they expect a number of 860,000 new XR jobs in Europe, which is really huge. On the technological side, we can also see that, this introduction of Web 4.0 and virtual worlds is going to request quite some drastic technological changes in computational efficiency, where basically this will most probably require an increase of 1,000 times what we have today, but also concerning the number of data streamed. Where we evaluate that basically using virtual worlds means that we need 40 times more data than what the infrastructure can cover for the moment. And of course, this will require the seamless integration of enabling technologies. You can see here on the pie the various technologies that we believe are extremely important for it to happen. Of course, extended reality, but also blockchain and NFTs, hyper-performing computing and quantum technologies, data, 6G, microelectronics, and naturally artificial intelligence. So our vision. Our vision is the one of Web 4.0 and virtual worlds that reflect EU values, principles, and fundamental rights. It might sound a bit obvious to repeat again and again about these EU values, but this is in fact extremely important because what we are trying to achieve here is really a vision where these values will be completely taken on board when we use these new tools. We want them to be a place where people can be safe, confident, empowered, and where people's rights as users, consumers, workers, or creators are fully respected. But we also want them to be a place where European businesses can develop world-leading applications, scale up, and grow. We want them to be a place that are open, interoperable, giving the full freedom of choice for users about what platforms they want to use, what kind of avatars they want to use, what kind of applications they want to use. And of course, we also need to tackle the sustainability issues. We should definitely be at the core of the technological developments of more or less everything these days. So the strategy itself, is divided in 4 pillars. There is in fact a hidden 5th pillar. This 5th pillar is the one about the infrastructure. So to have all of this happening, of course, we will also need some major breakthrough regarding connectivity, computing, cloud and edge computing. But this is already covered by a connectivity package from the Commission from February. So basically, this is why this is not again mentioned in this communication, but this is there as well, and we should not forget about it. The 4 pillars that we have developed are people and skills, business and industrial ecosystem, government, and governance. To develop this, we really made a lot of consultation with stakeholders. We had a call for evidence where more than 200 institutions or organizations replied and gave us their opinion. We talked to many people, and we also talked to the citizens. As I said before, we really wanted this strategy to be something that is going to help the development and the use in Europe, so citizens definitely needed to be in the loop. So we use this new tool that some speakers are going to mention a bit after me, the Citizens Panel, where we really gathered in Brussels for 2-3 weekends, roughly 150 citizens from all horizons to really discuss together and to define a vision for the future. The citizens came with recommendations. They first set some values and principles, and then 23 recommendations that you can see on the slides. You can also find a full report online. And as you can see, these recommendations cover many different things, but many things that basically many of us would have also probably mentioned as important technologically speaking, for work and job markets, to data use and protections, learning and education, the impact on health, the question of digital identity, the international cooperation, and so on. So all of this really help us to define the priorities that I'm going to show now. So when it comes to people and skills, we have 3 main blocks of actions. The first one is about building a talent pool. So that's something that many people told us, that we really, they struggle to find the right experts once they want to develop virtual worlds. So through our Digital Europe program and our Creative Europe program, we are going to really help the skills development in virtual worlds technologies. We will also work on some new tools that we have in place in the Commission recently to sign bilateral with 3rd countries, so people not member states, to really attract skilled experts from outside Europe when we definitely have gaps in our own pool of talents. We are going to develop tools for citizens. So all the citizens we talked to said that they really wanted a place where they could get advice, tips, explanations about what are virtual worlds and how they should use them. So this toolbox is for the general public is planned to be already ready by the end of March, hopefully. And this will really be a place where people can go and get information. We will keep on promoting the guiding principles put forward by the Citizens Panel. And we are also going to launch some more research on the impact on people's health and well-being, knowing that there are already quite many studies out there, but the results are very scattered. They usually covered only a piece of it. I mean, some specific cases, some specific applications, some specific pool of people. So we really want to have a view on everything and see what needs to be done if something needs to be done. And then we will pay special attention to our children because they will be probably the ones using these tools a lot in the future. And we will put some educational resources for young people. And to do that, we will be helped by our colleagues who are working on the Better Internet for Kids strategy, who can really do a lot together with us on this topic. When it comes to businesses, I mean, we have also 3 kinds of actions there. We want to boost the EU's technological capabilities. This is obvious. We need more research. We need excellence in research and innovation. And to do that, we have proposed the creation of a new European partnerships on the Horizon Europe to develop together with the industry and the academics. So this is really a public-private partnership, a full roadmap for industry and technology in Europe. This is still on hold. The member states have to decide about the partnerships that they are going to select. Hopefully by the end of the year, we will know more about this. We will have plenty of actions to accelerate the uptake of new business models and solutions, supporting in particular cultural and creative industries through Creative Europe, because they are really a big bunch of the SMEs involved in virtual worlds for the time being, but also working closely with the industry, reinforcing the virtual and augmented reality industrial coalitions, working with the European Digital Innovation Hubs to promote the uptake of new solutions, and organize matchmaking between virtual world developers and industrial users. And finally, we will really work on developing a supportive business environments. This includes the question of standards for open and interoperable virtual worlds, something extremely important, the creation of new digital cooperation models, of a toolbox to fight counterfeiting, and maybe also the creation of regularity sandboxes in some member states. So sandboxes are really special place where people can go and test the applications or devices without necessarily following directly all the regulation in place, but really to see where the gaps are and what needs to be done to make it happen at a, broader level afterwards. The 2 last pillars are about government and governance. We have some public flagships already in place about the Cityverse, a flagship for smart and sustainable cities and communities, and another one about the European Virtual Human Twin on the Horizon Europe. So this is already in the pipeline, and this is going to develop much more in the coming years. And we will also investigate the possibility to have multi-country collaboration through this new tool called EDIX, European Digital Infrastructure Consortium, in area relevant to virtual worlds. The governance is super important because nothing of what we are going to put here will happen without, the big picture and doing it at international level. So we will create an expert group to really shape a common approach for governance with member states. We will engage with existing multi-stakeholder internet governance institutions and also work with the technical multi-stakeholder forum beyond the remit of existing internet governance body to really tackle these issues. And of course, we will have to put in place a structured approach to monitor across all industrial ecosystem what is happening and how things are evolving. So if you want more information, you can easily get it. You just go once again to your favorite searching tool on the web and you type Web 4.0 and virtual worlds in EU initiative and you will get everything you need. Otherwise, you can go on our Europa website where you can find the communication itself in all official languages, but also a staff working document, which is really a mine of really very important information that we have collected through our discussions, our survey, and plenty of things there. So I would recommend this document as well. You can find the Citizens Report on Virtual Tours online as well. And if you are in a hurry, well, there is a question and answer, which is shorter to read, and some fact sheets, basically where you can also get very quickly a better view of what we are doing here. So I'm at the end of my presentation, and we are now going to listen to, interesting speakers. We will have something maybe a bit different from the communication today. So I will first give the floor to Joachim Roth, who is head of unit in DG Comms. And Joachim is basically working in the unit where they are taking care of these new tools, these very important tools for, democracy and talking together, the citizens panel. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to give you the floor, Joachim.
Thank you so much, Anna. And just to make it immediately follow up, I will upload also a couple of slides simply to show you what we have done in the citizens panel. It's worked perfectly as before. It doesn't work now. Huh?
No, we don't see it.
Yeah, me neither. I hate this.
Yeah, especially as we tried before when it was working.
Yes.
It's always like that.
Yeah, it is the classical demonstration effect. But you have. And now I have lost it completely. If you allow, I will try to.
Maybe you can send us your presentation and we can show it, Joachim.
Yes.
You can send it to Adelina or me and we can show it.
Yeah, that might be easier. But again, I have currently my computer is blocked, so I just try to get out of it. That at least we can talk. Huh?
Well, maybe we can go to Mariette then. Mariette, would you be able to share your presentation, you and?
I am.
Yeah, maybe you can do it because if the computer of Joachim is blocked anyway. It's not the logical order to do things.
Unfortunately, I don't see anything. Huh? I just have a blank screen in front of me. Yeah.
Okay, Mariette, can you take over?
I can. Yeah.
So I'm going to introduce you then.
Okay,
You are the coordinator at Rathenau Institute in the Netherlands. You are also a member of the Scientific Councils of Network Media Literacy. But more importantly, even if maybe not for us, you are a member of the Knowledge Committee of the Citizens Panel on Virtual Tours that we organized, that you will get the information about through Joachim afterwards. You were really very useful. You really talked to the citizens and we really wanted to have your view because you are basically also doing something similar at Dutch level. So we are really very much impatient to hear about your views on this. The floor is yours, Mariette.
Great, thank you so much, Anne. So I'll share my presentation. Let's first make sure that works. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you. I work for the Rathenau Institute, where I lead a team on responsible tech. And the Rathenau Institute is a technology assessment institute, which means we inform politics, policy, and society about the impacts of technology on society. And most recently, actually only 2 weeks ago, we published a new short report, which we call a Rathenau Scan, on immersive technologies, which was ordered by our Minister of Digitalization. and I'll share the main highlights. And my presentation is called Virtual Worlds Through the Lens of Public Values, because we took a public values perspective to look at both the opportunities and the risks of immersive technologies. So let me share the main insights of our research with you. This is actually the basic summary of the whole research that we did. In green, you can see the opportunities provided by immersive technologies and the domains in which the main applications are already being seen, so where these opportunities are being reaped. So in healthcare, I think we have a presentation about the healthcare sector and immersive tech in healthcare later today. In entertainment, in the office setting, in training and education, infrastructure, and art. These are the domains, the sectoral domains, where we see most activity now, and where you can see that really the opportunities of immersive tech are being reaped. And this has to do with two main traits or characteristics of immersive tech, which is one, that these technologies are able to give users a real feeling of presence in a virtual or a hybrid virtual digital environment. And that it can really create like emotional experiences. So you feel present and what you experience feels real. So that means it's great for simulation, it's great for remote distance collaboration and stuff like that. So you can see that on the left side of the slide in the green. Then in red, we've listed some risks for society, which are also very real. And we structured them around 8 public values, or 7 public values. So these are privacy, democracy, security, sustainability, which Anne also mentioned before, self-determination, health, and participation, inclusiveness, and non-discrimination. And I think these values, not one-on-one, but very much also respond to the guiding principles that the citizens in the citizens panel also really brought forward as finding important. So the fact that immersive technologies have risks to impact public values if we don't guide them in the right direction has to do with, again, specific traits of these technologies. And these mainly have to do with the data collection that is involved in this technology. So here you see a representation of what we call the cybernetic feedback loop, where you can see that data is first collected. So in this sense, in this example, we took the example of eye movement. So these VR devices, they collect eye movement data. They can analyze it in terms of to see where the user looks at, right? That's an analysis step. And then they can apply it to generate a 3D virtual world. That's an example of how this cybernetic feedback loop works. Then we had a look in the current devices, XR devices that are already on the market. We looked at the prototypes that are being developed around the world, and we looked at other devices that already exist and where a possible integration can be expected with XR devices and existing applications. For instance, when you talk about neurotechnologies or brain-computer interfaces, stuff like that. And then you can see that there's actually a whole world of opportunities, but also a couple of risks of collecting large amounts and different types of data. So it's about eye movements that we talked about. It's about the images of the surroundings of the user, but it's also about pupil size, pupil reflections, head movements, body movements, brain activity. We've seen the first prototypes where XR is combined with brainwave sensors. And this type of data can be used to analyze, for instance, someone's gender, someone's age, but also someone's ethnicity, someone's attention, someone's stress levels, anxieties. And so some of them are innocent, you can say, and it's really needed to give this experience of presence for people, but some are maybe less innocent or at least also risky. when it's about feelings, emotions, cognitive state, gender, stuff like that. These are really sensitive types of data. And these can be applied for more innocent things like simulation of senses, the generation of 3D worlds, but also for personalized advertising, targeted content recommendation, and even in the near future, predicting thoughts and behavior. All right. So based on these risks and opportunities, we looked at the existing legislative framework and mainly focused on the legislative framework surrounding this data collection. And we can see that the European Commission has been very, very active to really, regulate the digital space with the Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act, AI Act coming. So there's a lot of regulation being put in place. There's also the GDPR, obviously, which is important for our data protection. But moving forward and even anticipating maybe a broad breakthrough of these technologies, we do see room for even broader protections because of these risks of manipulation and privacy. And that has to do with with stronger protection of data. And mainly that has to do with the consent, because in the GDPR, currently a lot of our data is protected, but if we consent, it can actually be collected. And for certain data, I think we should have the discussion or raise the question whether we want to place the responsibility of consent on the individual user, for instance, when it comes to brain activity or pupil reflections. So these are things I think that policymakers need to think about, and that also we can discuss in the public debate, because it's also important to do that. So we have a couple of ideas on laws and regulation, then building of expertise and capacity. And then let me end with maybe one important thing, because that has to do with the vision that Anne just presented. So when it comes to incentive measures, and the vision includes some ambitious ideas to also boost the European innovative ecosystem, to really make sure that when we invest in developments of immersive tech, that public values come first. So make sure that once we incentivize or stimulate new applications, developers really have to do a risk assessment about how they tackle some of the risks that we just identified, and how they really contribute to public values. Let me end there. Thanks. I can't hear you. Maybe it's me, or
I'm unmuted, but is it?
Now we hear you.
Okay, there was a delay. Okay, thank you, Mariette. I was telling, we will take all the questions at the end. I mean, the chat is already booming with questions going in all directions. So we are trying with my colleagues to make blocks and to assign to different people. I mean, by the way, if you have questions for a specific speaker in the chat, please mention clearly to whom you are asking the question. So, I mean, if you really want some specific speaker to answer your questions. I'm afraid.
Say one last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on screen now is a QR code. It's linking to the publication, but it's only in Dutch now. In 3 weeks, it will be available in English.
Okay, so otherwise we can practice a bit of Dutch. This would be funny. Okay, anyway, thank you. I'm afraid that Joachim did not manage to connect again, so he must have really a serious problem with his PC. So, I mean, this is going to be a bit less logical that we had hoped for the discussion, but let's move to our next speaker, who has also very interesting things to tell us. So, Frank, the floor is going to be yours. You can already try to share your slides while I'm introducing you. So Frank is professor for human-computer interaction at the Department of Informatics at Hamburg University. I mean, so he really knows a lot about, the technology and everything that is needed, and what we really want to happen in the future. But also, most importantly, as Mariette, he was member of this knowledge committee of the Citizens Panel on Virtual Worlds, where he did a really good job in explaining, in simple terms to the citizens what it was about, all this technology, what could be done, what are the myths about it also in a certain way, because sometimes people watch a lot of science fiction movies and they forget that we are very far from this world where, our full vision of Web 4.0, let's put it that way. So Frank is going to really talk to us about blending real and virtual tools more from the academic perspective and what is the status, the state of the art of technology and where we are going there. Frank, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. So you can see my slides and hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfectly. As we talked already a lot about virtual worlds, in my talk, I would like to bring also the real world a little bit towards the virtual world and would like to show how we can actually bend or blend between these real and virtual worlds. And this is not a completely new idea, and Paul Milgram has already introduced in the beginning of the 90s the famous reality-virtuality continuum. And here he basically introduced our world, which is composed of real and virtual objects. So assume that you have like a continuum, and at the very far end on the left side illustrated here, we have reality. So that's basically the world of our atoms as we know it. And on the far right side, we have the virtuality, so in which everything is purely computer generated. That means everything that we perceive with all our senses would be computer generated. And that's kind of the vision of movies that we have seen, like The Matrix or the holodeck in Star Trek. But in between, and this is more reflecting reality, this is what we typically observe. We have a blending of reality and virtuality. And this is sometimes denoted as augmented reality, meaning that we take our real world and superimpose it with virtual content. So I'm wearing currently, for example, smart glasses, which are capable of projecting acoustic audio virtual environments, and I can superimpose this information to the real world. In the same way, you can come from virtuality and superimpose it with real objects, for example, a video stream to the real world, and thereby achieve something called augmented virtuality. And everything in between is called mixed reality. So you mix real and virtual content, or sometimes extended reality if you also include purely virtual worlds. And we already observe a blending of reality and virtuality with current consumer products. And here is just a couple of examples, like the Oculus Quest 3, which already uses, as you can see here, inside-out tracking. That means a lot of sensors which capture the real world and takes this real world information in order to superimpose it with virtual content. And as Mariette said, there is a lot of privacy issues here if you have a lot of sensors built in these technologies, which basically capture your entire surrounding. And a lot of people expect the Apple Vision Pro coming out at the beginning of next year, also in a similar way, blending reality and virtuality.
When you put on Apple Vision Pro, you see your world and everything in it. Your favorite apps live right in front of you, but now they're in your space.
And again, a lot of data needs to be collected from our surrounding in order to make this blending of reality and virtuality possible. For the remainder of my talk, I would just show you one example of a major challenge which still exists in virtual worlds and hasn't been solved yet. And that's an area in which we actively research, which is the question, how do we actually get around in virtual worlds? It seems to be quite trivial, yeah? So you're done on the head-mounted display, and then basically you track all the motions in the real world and map them one-to-one to the virtual world. The problem is that typically your real environment is much smaller than your virtual world. Might be, for example, in a real environment, you might be in your living room or maybe in a lab environment. But in the virtual world, you want to explore maybe a fully architectural building or maybe an entire city or a space station. So typically, these virtual worlds are much larger than you. However, you can only move in your physical space. And when wearing a head-mounted display, often your view to the real world is actually blocked. That means while you walk around and map your motions one-to-one, you could only explore a small fraction of the virtual world. And we have spent some time now, almost 2 decades, on the question, how can we solve this issue? And we came up with something called redirected walking. And let me briefly illustrate the idea here. So assume you wear a head-mounted display, you have a virtual environment, there might be a virtual chair. If we can predict that the user wants to walk towards this chair, the idea is to slightly rotate the environment around the user while the user is walking towards some objects in the virtual environment. And this will lead to the user walking on a circular arc in the real world, while he or she believed to have walked straight in the virtual environment. And this is a very interesting psychophysical approach of tricking users and making them believe that they can actually explore a space which is much larger in the virtual environment in a most natural way, which is by real walking in the virtual world. We performed a couple of psychophysical experiments illustrated here, and this already shows how interdisciplinary this research in virtual worlds is. So this is a cooperation between psychology and computer science, and that's a so-called two alternative forced choice task. So we asked, for example, users just walk straight, and we manipulated them either to walk on the left or to the right, and we asked them if they noticed this manipulation. And by doing so, we can basically identify how much we can trick users that they are not able of observing this. And just to show you here the results that we found. So in our first experiments around 15 years ago, we found that it requires a radius of approximately 22 meters, so that users are not able of detecting that they're actually walking on a circular path in the real world, while they actually believe to walk straight in the virtual environment. And what you can see, others have replicated these experiments, and you can see that with improving technology, the required circle shrinks. And that's a fascinating finding, since it shows that the better technology gets, the better the visual quality of these displays gets. And that means we trust more our visual sensors, and therefore we trust more these visual head-mounted displays and what they actually show us. And that's also an interesting question maybe for the ethics and moral discussion afterwards. So to sum up, I showed you this blending of reality and virtuality, and you can do the same with considering intelligence of humans and artificial intelligence. And in particular, this blending provides, I think, great opportunities to mix basically reality and virtuality, as well as artificial intelligence and human intelligence, since on this continuum, both are just end spots, and the real magic happens when you basically mix everything together. And I would like to stop here and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Frank. Very interesting indeed, especially the person who is turning around but believes he's straight. So our brain are really something special. So we are going to have a different perspective now after the academic, more research-oriented perspective. We are going to move to a more industrial perspective. And we have the chance to have Sébastien Assart with us this morning, who is Chief Corporate Strategist at Dassault Systems. So you can imagine that indeed digital twins and virtual twins become something really big in the industry, and how they can, change the way we do things in our professional lives. So Sébastien is certainly the right person to lead us to this kind of transformation. He is also a university teacher at Sciences Po in France and co-president of the Filière Santé Numérique and vice president of the Association Tech in France. So you can see that he really knows what he's talking about, and I'm sure that we will know more about industrial applications now. Sébastien, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anne. Good morning, everyone. And I'm very happy to be with you today. This is a good transition to come from the blending between virtual and real. And thank you, Frank, for this inspiring talk. I will try to explain what we can use this blending power for. And I think we have a big opportunity to use the V+R world to transform industry and to go to a greener industry. I will try to explain. Just to say a few words about Dassault Systems, and this is also a way to look at the past, because the progress has been really fast indeed. If we look at 40 years ago, it was like a surprise that people could design parts of products or just parts of aircrafts or cars, for instance. They could draw it on a computer, and this was like a surprise. And now it seems so natural. And I think nobody would have bet that we've come to that point right now. 40 years ago, people invented the 3D representation of the world, not because it's beautiful to see things in 3D, but because it allows great organizations to collaborate at scale. So if you think of an aircraft, you might have 1,000 of engineers working on the same object at the same time, and it's impossible if you are in a document-based approach. So you need to create a virtual twin of this object that is shared across all the organization, so that the people were exactly on the same thing, although they don't have the same view of the thing. They might have different facets of it because of their discipline. For instance, the aerodynamics engineer will not see the same thing as the cyber security engineer regarding an aircraft, but they might understand each other because they have a shared representation of the product they work about. And this is the story we have been part of for the past 40 years. And this is also, I think, a big European success, because we think as a European company, and this is for us really important. And now the systems that we are able to represent are really complex systems. For instance, we are able to represent cities, including the different physics inside the cities, and also organisms or human bodies, and this is used for healthcare. But now, if I look at industry, and this is my second slide, the virtual twin has become a reality in the industry domain. And here I took an example built by Alliance Industrie du Futur, which is a French industrial association. But I think the other associations might have the same conclusions, that there are a lot of use cases inside the factory, or also inside the industrial organizations, including the supply chain, the conception, and the operations of industrial assets. And if you look at the different cases here, which is like a taxonomy of the use cases of virtual twins in the industry, you have the green leaves appearing on the different use cases, not on all use cases, but you might see that a majority of the use cases have a green leaf on it. It means that using virtual twins has a real impact in terms of environmental conditions. And why so? Because virtual twins allow to project into the future, to analyze the consequence of my decisions today, and I might analyze the consequences in the long-term future. For instance, when you build a nuclear reactor, the lifetime of the reactor, of course, is very long. So you have to maximize the opportunity of taking the right decisions now, given the best knowledge that you can provide for the future. And here, model and simulation is a key approach. Now it's been implemented at scale in many different industry domains. So I talk here about energy domain, but also automotive, aircraft. You might imagine also for food and agriculture, etc. So thinking of the impact of the virtual twins in this domain, now we are only halfway, I would say, because we've been able to implement from a technological standpoint these virtual twins, but not at a sufficient scale. I think now the opportunity is huge to develop them more and more, and also the impact in terms of green industry are just at the beginning, because we can reimagine full industrial sectors. If you think of the connection between suppliers, OEMs, the different traceability across the value chains, the ability to have the full life cycle analysis of the products, depending on the place they are manufactured, the place they are sold, etc. So there is a huge opportunity to transform the industry through the new virtualization of industry. And here we have the meeting between virtual and real, helping to improve and enhance our industries. So my last slide will be about how this can happen. I tried to share the belief with you that virtual twins power a new green industry. And why should we think that this is happening? Three views on it. The first view is that with virtual twins, we are able to engineer circularity somehow. Why so? For instance, because modularity can be embedded into the product through virtual twins. For instance, we have a European project called ECON. Some of you might know this project regarding electronics. And the idea here is to use the virtual twin to enhance the recyclability of the products. And the idea is around the 6 R's that you see here on the picture. So recycling, reducing the impact, making things more reliable, so longer lifetime duration, repairing the things, because if you better know about a product through the virtual twin, you are able to better repair it, reusing the product, and also refurbishing. Here you see a lot of partners working on this same idea. The objective is to position Europe as a role model for a low environmental impact of electronics. And I think this is very practical consequence of the virtual universes. Second aspect is about accelerating green innovation, because the virtual twins, the virtual worlds, enhance the ability to cooperate at scale across organizations, but also outside organizations. And for instance, here, this is a partnership with the regulating authority in the domain of aeronautics, so with EASA at European level. And Concerto, this EU project is about helping this authority to certify the new greener aircraft. And if you think of the complexity of certifying objects that have never flight before, virtual twins of these objects are clearly make a difference. So this is the second aspect, because if we want to have the green revolution, we need to accelerate innovation. And the third aspect is about the ability to assess what we call the handprints. Very often when we consider ecological impact, we consider footprints, which is the negative impact. But very often we are able to reduce this negative impact, and we can call it handprints, which is a play on words, if you think so, but also which is a big opportunity to look at the potential of improving our way of producing, of using the products. And here we analyzed this, and you have the references to the studies below. The idea is that the digital platforms, and I would say the virtual universes, can help us improve the handprints. And one commitment that should be taken somehow by the digital players or the producer of virtual capabilities is that their handprints should be much higher than the footprint generated by the digital platform. You know, there is a lot of debate about the footprint of the digital sector. My answer to this is that handprints should be also measured with the right measure, so that there is no greenwashing in the handprint measure. But this handprint can be as high as 10,000 times higher than the footprint. And in this case, I think that digital approaches or virtual universes really improve the real world. So this is for my intervention.
As I announced before, so we had I mean, more like the global overview. We had the academy overview, the industrial overview, and now we are going to move to something more practical. I mean, with a concrete application in the healthcare sector. And we are going to welcome Lucia Panese with us, who is the CEO and Research Director of Imaginary and a trainer at Red Hall Healing Horses. And I mean, Lucia is also taking part to one of our EU-funded projects called VR2Care, where basically they are trying to develop smart living environments for physical activity and rehabilitation. So as you can see, it's really using virtual tours for some good purposes in societal applications. Lucia, if you can share your slides, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anne. So I hope you see my screen.
Yeah, we see it perfectly.
Wow. Okay, that has worked out. So thank you very much for having me. I'm Lucia Panese. I'm the CEO of Imaginary. We're not as well known as Dassault Systems, of course. We're expert in serious gaming. So games that have purposes different from entertainment. And specifically, we work a lot on health and care. And I was invited kindly to present this VR2Care EU-funded project under the Horizon 2020 program. So yes, we changed the setting a little bit. The idea is to shift to health and care. And what the project is aiming to do is really promoting active and healthy aging through virtual world, through gaming, through interaction with digital systems, through natural interaction, having a look not only at physical exercise, but also at socialization dynamics. So we have a mixture of game-based training and rehabilitation. So from something softer to something more sensitive, if you want, through virtual worlds and virtual reality systems where elderly people interact in a natural way. So basically what we're trying to do here through 4 test beds that we have, 2 in Italy, 1 in the Netherlands and 1 in Portugal, is to try to offer some physical activity, as I said, from rehabilitation to assisted gymnastics at home, that can be planned as individual game through our rehabilitation system. That is our contribution from our company, but also in a virtual world, which is a multiplayer environment, and that is developed by Inestec, who is the Portuguese coordinator of the project. And the idea is that all the sessions, so single user sessions and multi-user sessions, are planned through a sort of app that elderly people can use on their smartphones, provided by Smart AL, and that's a Portuguese partner, technology partner. And at the same time, we're monitoring that everything goes smoothly via some cameras provided by Cogvis, an Austrian partner. So these cameras are detecting falls, so that safety is safeguarded here. So it's really a sort of mixture of social interactions, games, physical activity, planned where it's possible in an individualized way. So games are not standard for everyone, but they have to be personalized by trainers, by normally physiotherapists, people like that. So I would really like to start from the aims of the projects to throw a couple of reflections here on the floor. The aims of the projects can be summarized in these 3 bullet points. So on the one hand side, we want to integrate different perspectives, a technology one, a clinical one, and a social one, to produce something that is meaningful for these people, but that also has a sound, in a way, scientific background in terms of rehabilitation or a social care offer or dynamic. On the other hand, we are trying to make people socialize online. So really try something that honestly has failed in some previous projects. I have quite some experience in these projects, and we know how difficult it is, particularly if we think of a cold start of a system, to have online socialization, and even more so when we're talking about elderly people who are clearly not so very used to this dynamics online. And at the same time, of course, we want to explore and measure what is going on. So engagement, commitment, but also effectiveness and impact, because if we're talking of rehab, but even only of assisted gymnastics, we have to see that we're not losing the meaningfulness and the efficacy that it has when people meet in the gym and really get moving and keep active, because we cannot lose what we have, which is positive in the real world. So starting from these aims, my reflections, I will try to summarize in a quite short but hopefully clear way, is I believe we have really to concentrate on where the boundaries are and how we can create value. I mean, I've listened before to my colleagues talking, and I'm happy that I heard words like hybrid, like in between, like harmonizing components, digital and real ones. And I think that is really the point. Honestly, I'm a bit worried when I hear or when I see, and I'm not talking about this event here, but in general, when I see all the efforts of sometimes frantically trying to put everything online and everything digital. I mean, Second Life honestly has failed already. Let's keep in mind what has gone wrong. And does everything need to be online? Honestly, I don't think so. I think that really we have to start reflecting very, very carefully on how we can enhance value, adding some digital components, but the effort should not be really to shift everything in a digital world, just to making a sort of digital clone of what we're doing in the real world. So even this online socialization aspect is the one that worries me most. And in the VR2Care project, we have started thinking about it. Should it be online? Should the socialization be online? Are we really sure? Even in teenagers and younger people, we have seen so much distress in doing everything online, and they're really, in a way, sometimes losing the grasp on reality. So I would like to conclude asking if this is really what we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. That's very philosophical, but indeed a very good question. I would like to clarify then, when we have this vision of Web 4.0, that's certainly not that everything should be online. That's really that when it's useful to be online, we are online. I fully agree. But I mean, we completely got what you meant, and that we should not be carried away by our enthusiasm at some point. Thank you. So we now normally have Joachim back with us. Joachim, are you?
Let's try now for a second go. Huh?
Yeah. So I mean, I would like to reintroduce you again. So you are head of unit in DG COM. I mean, of a unit called the Citizens Dialogues Unit. So it says clearly what it means. I mean, you are really leading and managing the Commission's team that organized the Citizens Dialogue with all commissioners in all member states. So that's really an important thing. And we very much welcome you today. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you very much for your colleague, I think, Sarah, who will do the presentation for me. Somehow, if you could just go to the first slide, please. If we start, we somehow close the circle that you opened with your presentation of the communication. So what we do in my team, our mission is essentially citizens engagement that follows three overall goals. On one hand, it's indeed about making democratic innovation a part of the way how we work as an institution. It is about the empowerment of people, of stakeholders, and it's a way to improve the way how we do policy making, again, as an institution. If you could go to the next one. Now, the EU citizens panels are a relatively new thing. So you have been somehow kind of guinea pig, because we started in 2021 under the Conference on the Future of Europe to experiment really on a pan-European scale. Is it possible to work with citizens directly on concrete policy issues? So we took from this experience the setup of a series of citizens panels, 3 in winter and spring 2022-23. These were characteristic by the following basic points. On one hand, we worked as DG Communication with policy DGs, so in this case with Connect, but also with DG Sante on a panel which looked into food waste, with DG EAC in a panel that looked on the creation of a council recommendation on learning mobility, and with you in bringing in a citizen's perspective to the question indeed how this Web 4.0 and the virtual world should look like. As a basis for that, you could just stay with, as a basis for that, we work with a panel of 150 people from all 27 member states. These were not really representative. For that, 150 people is not enough, but they reflected the diversity of the EU population in terms of, on one hand, they are belonging to one of the 27 member states, to their residents in urban or in rural areas, their gender, the level of education, and their professional background. So what we could really see is we reached out far beyond those people normally we can reach. 1/3 of our panelists, that was a political decision from our leaders, were young people. That means in our case between 16 and 25 years old. We worked in a participatory methodology, and that 2 weekends here in Brussels, starting Friday at lunchtime and ending on Sunday afternoon, plus 1 week fully online. You could have the next one, please. The facts, Anne, you have already outlined. So we had in this panel not exactly the 150, but 142. These 140 people worked over their 3 weekends on 23 recommendations. The focus indeed was on creating these virtual worlds in a way that's inclusive, that's accessible, that's transparent, and that's sustainable. And I was very happy to see that exactly these elements then are a part of the communication. The product as such, apart from the 23 recommendations, was a citizens report that was annexed to the communication. And what you have already described in, again, your overview is the emphasis indeed was very much on EU digital rights, it was laws and values, and on that human-centric approach, whether it's with regard to education, the digital literacy, or also health impacts. Could have the next one. Now, just a couple of impressions to show from that. We worked essentially in plenary and in breakout groups. We had experts addressing the citizens. We had also a knowledge committee that accompanied the panel, so that could provide insights and factual information about where we are and where we are going to do. We had also a lot of practical demonstrations, and what for us as DG Communication was an important element is for the first time we really tried to communicate this not only organically and through our panelists as such, but also with a communication strategy and some concrete expenses there on the social media channels of the Commission as a whole, but also of Connect. Could have the next one. Now, the panel as such is not a self-standing item. It is a part of a whole ecosystem that we are currently building up. The panels have been successfully tested. They will be accompanied from the end of this year on with a revamped Have Your Say portal, and in this citizen engagement platform, which is interactive and works in all 24 languages. We have worked a lot to provide corporate guidance in the form of a guidebook, which is going to be published in the next days. We started also to build up a structure for inter-service information and coordination. This is a permanent project team that meets about 3-4 times per year. Plus, important if in a future moment this will go beyond the cooperation between DG COM and others. We have also put up a new dynamic purchase system for all the necessary services that would be needed in order to make citizens' participation a part of the normal way of preparing policy. We have the next one. Just a little view into the future. On one hand, we are preparing currently a new series of European citizens panels, so that build again on the experience with what we have done with you and others. They will start most likely at the beginning of 2024, again on concrete policy issues. We will accompany this even more than before with a communication strategy that will go in both directions, so vertically from Europe to the local level and horizontally in order to comprise the entirety of the Commission that has an interest and a stake in the themes. And what we do, and for that I just give you some photos from your sister panel. We do a systematic follow-up. So today, as we speak now, we have currently a feedback event with the colleagues in DG Sante on the recommendations of the panel that we did on food waste. So the people that you can see in the big picture are currently either here in Brussels or connected online and receive then about 8 months after the panel has submitted its recommendations, a feedback from the Commission, what is done, because this is an important element simply to increase not only the legitimacy, but also the credibility of the process that we do. And with that, I'm happy to be a part of then your discussion following. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Achim. I'm glad that we could hear this interesting presentation, because as you could see, this was a very new tool and one that appeared to be very useful in setting all our priorities. So thank you again to you and your team for giving us this opportunity to do this for this communication. Right, so we have now listened to all our speakers. I mean, we had many different pieces of information, and we are now going to listen to you and to all the questions that you have put in the chat. I mean, there are quite many, so I mean, we will do our best to try to answer more or less everything. But I mean, we will do our best. Before I start asking concrete questions to our speakers, I would like to make a clarification about the legislation, because many questions that we see on the chat are related basically to what kind of actions the EU is planning regarding legislation. I mean, taking care of the various, related issues that could come with legislation. And basically, well, we have for the moment quite a clear position on this. When we prepare for the communication, we made an extensive review of what is available out there. And as you know, Europe has always been at the front end regarding legislation on new technologies and innovation. And we have already quite a lot. We have the GDPR that was mentioned. We have the DSA, we have the DMA, we have the Copyright Directive. We have an AI Act, which has been discussed for quite some time, but will probably come into action very soon now. And the conclusion of all of this was that for the time being, there is no urgent need to put a new legislation. It does not mean that all these issues will not have to be tackled at one point as the technology becomes more and more mature and it's more and more used. And we are definitely going to work on that as well in the coming years. What has been confirmed basically also by a report from the European Parliament, the Jury Committee last month, where they basically also did a study and asked the Commission to start really digging a bit deeper in these issues. But for the time being, we are aware that there might be some, I would not call problems, but some gaps to be covered maybe a bit more in the near future. But this is not on the agenda for, let's say, the immediate next months. So this is just to cover all these questions where basically we don't have a specific answer except explaining that this is on the agenda, this is going to be studied carefully, also together with the member states, and this is going to be covered in the near future. So now I go to maybe more specific questions and things that our experts will be able to cover. So Mariette first, there is a questions where basically people ask, how can virtual worlds be used to address global challenges such as climate change and poverty? This is something that you tackle a little bit in your talk, so I guess it would be good to hear from you a bit more on this topic. Mariette,
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm here. Yeah. I have to say, how it can be used to be tackled, I think it's really about the balance. So we've just heard about, for instance, how digital twins can help maybe make industrial processes more sustainable and more green. At the same time, what I hear too little is actually the energy consumption that is involved with all these, with further digitalization and immersive worlds. So it needs a lot of data, as I told, and data are not in the air. They're actually, we need data centers for that, and they also have emissions. So I think what's really important moving forward in adopting these technologies is that we make an assessment of how these technologies actually contribute to being more energy efficient, but at the same time also looking at the costs, like the energy costs of these technologies, and optimize this, because we shouldn't be naive that it only helps to improve. There's also real parts there. So, and then when it comes to poverty reduction, yeah, I haven't looked into that. No, that's not my field of expertise. It's a really interesting question, but no, well, maybe one thing that's not about poverty, but it's about inclusiveness. I mean, what XR can do is, for instance, my mom, she was handicapped, so she couldn't get out of bed, and she couldn't participate in large shares of social life, right? And with XR, if that would have been, now she passed away, but she could have gone to museums, she could have gone on virtual trips, she could have, yeah, be part of, society much more than she was in the past. So, I mean, that's not about poverty, but it is about maybe inclusiveness and sort of sharing experiences that are maybe now for the few in a broader sense with more people. Yeah.
Thank you, Mariette. Then a question for Frank. We are barely following accessibility guidelines now in current interfaces. How confident are you about this in virtual worlds?
Oh, that's a good point. There is already some research groups interested in XR accessibility and developing new technologies as well as techniques which help people with certain demands or limitations when interacting with computers. So I believe actually that this technology has great potential to be more accessible than the technology that we have nowadays, since it per se already uses multiple senses. Yeah, so it per se has the ability to use, for example, as we heard in Marietta, my gaze to control something. I can use my voice to control something. I can use my limbs to control something if I have access to these different aspects. However, in contrast to, let's say, graphical user interfaces, we don't really have yet fully established ways of interacting with these systems. Yeah? So there is a lot of research groups currently investigating how we can select 3D objects in space by using these different sensors. And I'm kind of happy that accessibility already plays here a role in several research groups. It could be strengthened for sure, but I would say in contrast to what we have seen in graphical user interfaces, this is already considered already now in the development, rather than doing it afterwards and realizing that our systems are not accessible and then try to make them accessible. However, a lot of the interfaces that we see nowadays for XR are still focused on visual displays. Yeah? So there is a lot of attention to visually displaying environments. However, I'm often reviewing papers which are helping people with hearing impairments or visual impairments to support them. So I'm quite optimistic that this technology has actually the opportunity to be more inclusive and more accessible than what we have seen like 20 years ago.
Thank you. Sebastian, we have quite a few questions about photonics on the chat. I mean, I don't think we are going to cover all of them, but basically, I mean, most of the questions are related to how can photonic solutions be applied in virtual worlds, what kind of advantage they can bring, if they can be, you know, used I mean, for example, for sustainable and ecological way, for things like that. Do you have a view on the use of photonics technologies in virtual worlds, especially in the industry context? We don't hear you, Sebastian.
Okay, now. Okay, thank you for this question. I'm not an expert about photonics. Just two insights I could have just right now. First insight is that we've been always independent from hardware dimensions. And why so? Because through the last 40 years, what we have learned is that the hardware evolves really fast. And you can think 5 years from now, perhaps the quantum compute will be more developed and mainstream than now, etc. So the things still evolve really fast. What is really discriminating is the ability to represent, model, simulate, etc. The new technologies just help to push the borders to go further and further. But I would say, and perhaps 5 years from now, I will say the opposite, but I hope not, because this is a strategic choice, that the hardware dimension for us as a company, and also I would say for the virtual universes, should be at the service of the virtualization, but should not determine the way we represent the virtual worlds, etc. So first aspect of the answer is we try to be agnostic in terms of hardware. This is a key strategy, and I think this is also related to competition regulation, to the balance between the different providers, to interoperability, etc. So this is a key topic, to try to have this neutrality between hardware and what we do on top of it. Second dimension is, of course, photonics, but like other information technologies, can accelerate a lot of things. And what I like to say here is what I believe is that photonics can also be a trigger for the quantum revolution in terms of compute. And perhaps this is where it can change things dramatically. But this is all I can say because I'm not more an expert than it.
Thank you. I would just like to add something on this. We are currently working very closely at EU level with our colleagues from Photonics to really try to see how we can align priorities and develop together some research and innovation priorities for the next 3-5 years on how, you know, photonics components could come and help developing better hardware in Europe. So the idea here is that indeed we acknowledge the fact that most hardware is unfortunately very often designed and produced outside of Europe, but we see maybe a potential to really use the excellent research we have in the photonics domain in Europe to really help developing, maybe some more specific components that could be reused, especially in Europe about this. So it's just to give an example that this is something that we do believe, at least at research level, could be really applied in the next couple of years. So that's just complementing Sébastien answers on a more policy point of view. Thank you, Sébastien. Then, we have questions. I think this was meant for Lucia because it was sent at the moment she was giving her talk. And basically, someone is asking whether you are aligning with other EU-funded projects that work in similar topics, because the person sometimes feels that efforts are duplicated but not aligned. So, as your experience of being in an EU-funded project dealing with XR, how do you feel about your fellow projects?
Well, that is an activity that is normally carried out in a centralized way. So the project is always looking at what the others are doing, because clearly you have to carry out your own experiments, but then you compare what the others are doing, you compare results, and you sometimes merge efforts for disseminating. So in a way, you consider the other projects such as building blocks. Now, if the question is which ones they are, I don't have them in mind because I wasn't doing personally this activity myself. I should ask. I don't know if we have Hugo here in the participants, in the attendees here, the coordinator, because I am sure he knows by heart. But I know that something like that, sort of scouting, is being done constantly. That's normal part of EU project activities.
Yeah, thank you. I confirm. And we also regularly organize at our level workshops where we invite all projects. Very often, you are right, Lucia is the coordinator who is joining to make sure that people are informed. We had one recently, again, last month at Stereopsia in Brussels, where we really make sure that people are aware of what the others are doing. And then, as you say, it's part of natural research that you compare your results with others and you check what is out there. So hopefully we try to avoid duplication as much as possible, even if sometimes the same goal can be achieved through different methods. So at first glance, it might look like it's the same, but in fact, it's not, because we are testing different ways to achieve the same results. Thank you. Then I will last to, if there are no direct questions for Joachim, but as he's with us, Joachim, I would like to know, do you feel like this domain was particularly a good choice for the Citizens Panel to discuss virtual tour? Wasn't it too technologically advanced, or compared to other panels? What do you think is the added value of the panel specifically for this case, as you have seen a few?
Yeah, well, for the added value, it's a little bit up to you to see what you took from it. If I see it from my perspective, it was an excellent theme, because indeed it concerns everybody in every situation of life. Now, the philosophy of Citizens Panel is we bring together these people who are normally not necessarily those that we as an institution talk to. And we manage over normally the 3 weekends to create consensus among them about those, in this case, 20 points that are really important for them. And this consensus building indeed has functioned very, very well. And we can see it in particular from what in your presentation was the part on people, what indeed is necessary, where also for formulating a vision we need to put a focus on, and that means indeed, what does it mean in terms of education? What does it mean in terms of literacy? What does it mean in terms of this human center of the way how we conceive our policies, be it our laws, be it policies, be it funding, and indeed bringing in the voice of those that normally would not talk to us. I think is indeed in quality a huge advantage compared to what we have done so far.
Thank you, Joachim. I will now go to a few other questions that have been left there. I mean, there is one addressed to both Mariette and Frank, so whoever feels like they have something to say about it. The question is, what steps need to be taken to make XR a future workplace to spend significant time in? So what are your views on this?
I can maybe start here. So one of the essential things is really to make this technology more comfortable. Yeah. So in particular, if you want to use it for multiple hours, you don't want to have like a closed head-mounted display, which does not provide a lot of air circulation for your eyes. You're blocked more or less from real space. So this technology has to get further miniaturized and getting more comfortable, but this also introduces some trade-offs. Yeah? So if this technology comes down to glasses like this, I'm pretty confident that people are willing to wear this for a significant amount of time during their work days if it provides advantages to them. But that means that if the glasses get smaller and smaller, that means at some point we can't include all the CPU, GPU performance that we have nowadays in the glasses. And this introduces some privacy and security concerns, since that means that everything that I'm seeing and which is processed here has to be done somewhere else, yeah? On an edge computer maybe, or even maybe on some render farms or so, which again have to be hosted by some institutions or some companies who will then have a lot of access to my private data here. Yeah? So I think it's a little bit of trade-off here that we have to get done so that we can actually use this technology on a consumer level really for multiple hours per day.
Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure, Mariette.
Yeah, so fully agree actually with Frank. And I guess that last point would be really something to stress. So make sure that when we introduce these devices at the offices, we really minimize data as much as possible. So the comfortable part is definitely necessary, otherwise we won't use it. But then data minimization is another part. So limit sensors as much as possible and really make sure that there's good protections there, because the risk of misuse is really there. So I think there's a really responsibility of employers, but also of regulators, to make sure that we don't introduce devices that have a large data protection issue.
Yes, thank you. Sebastian, there is quite a technical questions again here about networks. And someone asked, are asymmetric upload-download networks that are used today in a mass market fit for purpose to deliver virtual tours? So what is your view of the current state of the networks and the connectivity in general, I would say?
I'd like to connect to the previous question as well, because this is a question about global architecture of how the compute, the storage, and also the network is distributed. There are new technologies to handle notably the privacy, still need to be proven how this can help notably the federated learning. There is a lot of research around these topics, notably in the healthcare domain. And you might also think not only in terms of privacy, but the critical data from an industrial player. For instance, if I say Airbus, they have critical data that they need to protect, and across the supply chain around the company. So the different organizations need to protect their own data, and still they need to communicate some data. So this question about the global architecture is key. I would say one topic that is still to be developed is the traceability. So I would say the metadata aspect of it. There have been a lot of work around the notion of standards to represent the virtual twins. And these standards now are verticalized by a sector. and I think we are progressing fast in this domain. Still, the notion of traceability of ecological impact, for instance, is now just at the beginning of the need we would have. Behind these notions of traceability, of protection of data, there is the notion of architecture of the network. I would say the good topic is not only information, is the distribution of knowledge. Knowledge is the coupling with how the people use this information. It's valid for personal data, but also for industrial data. So the asymmetric upload, download, etc. aspects. So I'm not able to say how it will converge. Somehow there will be a transient architectures that are valid some year, but the year after it can change. Why so? Because new models emerge, and here I see the questions around generative AI, LLMs, etc. How you train big models if you don't have access to the data? It might become possible through notably the federating learning approaches, but still there is a balance, there is a compromise, and I'm not able to say what will emerge. Still, what should be probably protected is to be defined, and it might be defining requirements for the architecture. So just not answering directly, but telling, okay, we should have defining requirements, and the answer will evolve depending on the technological capabilities we have.
Thank you, Sebastian. And then one final question for Lucia, even if I think this question was also a bit triggered by the presentation from Frank, but there is a question about the motion sickness. I mean, when basically people walking circularly instead of straight are doing this. And I would like to extend a bit the question about, all this health impact that you probably, evaluate quite a lot in your position. So, do you have something to say more specific on this question on motion sickness when using virtual tour system?
Well, I guess that the question comes from the idea that we use headsets here, because sickness comes with using headsets, which is something that we in the company avoid completely. Because if you're treating fragile people, like elderly patients, for example, you have to avoid everything that makes their status more risky or more even more fragile, like headsets. So that's why I said with natural interaction, what we do is normally make them do normal body movements in front of RGBD cameras, which are cameras that read patient skeletons. These are able to recognize their joints. So they don't even wear anything. We are even against the use of wearables because of the type of patients we treat. I'm not saying that wearables shouldn't be used, but it really very much depends on what you're trying to do. Like, for example, if I were to do sports rehabilitation, I probably would also encourage the use of wearable sensors, because that makes a lot of sense. They're precise, that you can do a lot of things, but you have always to start from the user. So it's really user-centric, not like a fashion concept, but like a real concept. What we do is also co-designing the solutions that we prepare, we develop with the patients, not only with medical teams. So in other words, we have to be really, really careful in the choice even of the hardware and all the components that we use. So sensors we do have, but they're not wearable. And as I said, there's no issue of sickness there, because you're standing or even sitting in a wheelchair, in a chair, it depends, in front of the games and interacting with your arms, with your balance, maybe shifting or standing up, sitting down, and things like that. And there you cannot be sick, because then you would be sick in your real world. Also consider that what we do is always in the hands of specialists. So it's never the little app that we give to patients. It's always in the hand of specialists, and they have to set up proper inclusion criteria as to which type of patients they include in the therapy. And then the therapy is even personalized. So this is excluded a priori.
Thank you. Well, now, I mean, there are two questions which are a bit more EC related. I mean, there is one question about digital skills and what Europe is doing about it concretely, and how Europe is basically prepared to actually using Web 2.0. So here I would like to refer you to an important part of the Digital Europe program, the DET program, where we have different 5 objectives, strategic objectives, and one of the 5 strategic objectives is exclusively the 4th one about advanced digital skills. So we were already investing quite a lot of effort and money at EU level. I mean, we already have many projects going in different directions, for example, to help designing and funding masters at EU level on some emerging technologies such as AI, blockchain, hyper-performing computing, but also extended reality and virtual worlds. So we have this kind of activity. We also have projects to coordinate people together. We have a digital skills and jobs platform. We have a code week, initiative where people can really learn, coding from a very young age. So there is really a huge package there. So I will send you back to this SO4 for DEP to see the kind of activities that we are funding at EU level. Then there is also another question about the AR/VR coalition and basically what we are doing concretely to make it bigger. So we are working already quite closely with the people in the coalition. If you are interested, we have a website you can go and see and also apply to be part of it. We are regularly organizing meetings together to discuss. I mean, for example, the one I mentioned previously about photonics will be done through the coalition and the photonics partnership. So, I mean, we are really trying to go together there and to really have informed discussion, knowing also that if the partnership that I mentioned previously materialize, which we really hope for, I mean, the coalition will really have an important role to play in it. And as the first seat to the private part of it, where we are going ready to work together on defining, I mean, officially the research priority and the roadmap for technology and research for the next years in Europe. So this is how this is going to be done. I think we covered most of the questions, I mean, at least with the speakers that we have now. Of course, I'm sure that we still have plenty of very precise questions, but I don't think we will have the time to tackle all of this today. So I would like to really warmly thank everyone, the people who follow us online. I mean, thank you for taking the time to listen to our plans, our ideas, and our inputs. And of course, a very warm welcome to the speakers who were with us this morning. I think we all benefited from your knowledge and your insight on everything. And also thanks to the team, because I'm just a face here, but there is a whole bunch of people working behind me to make it happen, including at IT level. And we have seen today that we also need this part. So thank you very much, everyone. Looking forward to see you again online or in real maybe. And then, well, have a good day and let's stay connected. Bye-bye.